Welcome to another Northern Monkey's datasheet review. This time we're looking at the Assualt Intercessors with jump packs and the way to get the most out of them with the different detachments and leaders that are available to you. These guys are the spiritual successor to the Assault Squad. The JPIs, as most people call them. They're just a good, fast, cheap, efficient unit for Space Marines, and they're really something you should value in your army. So at 90 points for 5 of them, these guys are a little more expensive than your average Space Marine infantry, but you get that move 12, which is an absolutely massive benefit. This just lets you score objectives early, lets you zip across the board, even between cover without your opponent being able to take you out. Just a really strong thing to have going on with these guys. And they play this kind of fast, flying assault infantry role really well. And they're always going to kind of win the fight with your opponent's kind of units that are trying to do this. Just because they're Space Marines, they've got that 3-up save, they have all these chainsword attacks. You know, the squad kicks out 16 chainsword attacks, 3 power fist attacks, and a load of guns. They've got plasma pistols and all sorts going on. So yeah, just a really like solid stat line for 90 points. In terms of what abilities these guys have, got 2 fairly decent ones. Deep Strike, this basically lets them arrive anywhere on the battlefield outside of 9 of enemies from turn 2 onwards. Really strong ability for scoring points and getting the jump on your enemy. And as well as that, Hammer of Wrath is their unique ability. Essentially, you do mortal wounds for every one of these guys that can get within engagement range of an enemy unit on a 4+. Really strong. A little tricky if you've got a larger unit to get everyone into that engagement range. But honestly, these guys can put out a surprising number of mortal wounds thanks to this. Even a little 5-man squad, you'll probably average 2 to 3 mortals. Combine that with the grenades, suddenly you're averaging like 6 mortals a turn. Really quite strong, and can sort of let them overwhelm a unit that you might not necessarily expect them to. So yeah, these abilities are really strong. They fulfill that skirmishing role, while also having a bit of a kick to them, which is quite nice. Surprisingly for a primary squad, these guys have quite a complicated loadout. The sergeant can take a hand flamer or a plasma pistol, then he can have a power sword or a power fist, and then another guy can also have a plasma pistol. I really think the best loadout you can take on this squad is a fist and a plasma on the sergeant, and then a plasma on one of the guys. You don't necessarily always want to be overcharging, but the extra strength that the plasma pistol has is really worth it. Just even AP and strength, you don't need the range of the bolt pistol really. You're always going to be deep striking within 9. You're able to move fast to get within range. The flamer on the sergeant, I just think it's a bit too weak. If you could take multiple hand flamers in this squad, it might genuinely be worth it to be able to overwatch certain cheap enemy units like rangers and the like that will really get wrecked by that. But I think the best loadout is solved at the fist and 2 plasma pistols. In terms of detachments available to these guys, Stormmont's Task Force, that's an absolutely great one. Basically the detachment rule is the main and almost only draw out of this detachment. All your units are eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which they advanced and fell back. This just makes these guys absolutely amazingly fast. If we look at some of these standard kind of deployment zones, we can see that if you position your jump pack intercessors kind of into those middle ruins, even just from your own deployment zone, with a movement of 12 going through walls and advancing and charging, these guys can just threaten almost any central objective. And even just walk onto it to cleanse it or something, do some other kind of objective. But your opponent is just not going to be able to get anywhere near these objectives without you being able to threaten them with these jump pack intercessors. It's a really strong pressure ability. Back to Stormmont's Task Force. Remember, when these guys make their move, thanks to the fly keyword, they can go over enemy models. So if they get tied up or locked in with an enemy unit, you can fall back over the top of your opponent's units and get like deep into their army and really like put a pressure on them that you wouldn't be able to if with just like normal intercessors, for example. So a really strong like feature on these guys is that ability to fall back and charge. And don't forget, whenever you do fall back and charge, you're also getting those mortals again thanks to the Hammer of Wrath ability. So really quite strong. I think if you are putting a leader in this squad, it's maybe worth considering the reroll advances thanks to the Portum of Wisdom enhancement. It's a little expensive. You know, the squad's going to start ticking up there in points between a leader and this, but it is going to make their like threat range far more reliable. Now Gladius Task Force, always good, sort of evergreen detachment. They get access to advance and fall back and charge through the different doctrines. You know, maybe this unit is worth putting like 1 CP advance and charge if you're going to get a lot of value out of it, thanks to one of the stratagems that gives you that. But the squad tactics reactive move as well. If your opponent's like sort of setting up a counter charge on these guys, going to get the drop on them, they're probably going to die because they're still just intercessor bodies at the end of the day. But if you manage to use that reactive move to get away and then charge in, you get Hammer of Wrath. It might cost you a couple of CP, but between grenades, Hammer of Wrath, you might overwhelm an enemy unit and suddenly they're having to trade 2 units to deal with your one little unit. Really, really good. And if you're wanting these guys to punch up, Honour the Chapter Stratagem from Gladius. Absolutely amazing. Gives them Lance, which sorts out their kind of mediocre strength. But also if you're in that Assault Doctrine, which you may well be for the advance and charge, you also get +1 to your armour penetration. Really, really strong on all these guys' chain swords. It just sort of turns that factor up just a little bit, where if you've got Oath of Moment going, maybe you just really like completely smash an enemy unit that wouldn't usually be able to be defeated by such a kind of a small skirmishing piece like this. So just before we move on to my own thoughts and experiences with this unit, I think it is worth saying, and people might point out in the comments, that detachments like Blood Angels that they have access to and other successor chapters, they can really, really like pump up the melee damage on this squad, which I think they get a lot more of efficiency out of them, you know, and some Blood Angels detachments are even teched into jetpack units. So those are really worth looking at. However, if you're just looking at pure Space Marines, which you generally do here, I still think these guys are a strong utility unit. The ability to go into Deep Strike Reserve to score points, or move up early game to get onto objectives with their move 12, you can really just be a great scoring piece. Like, there's a reason that they had to get their points increased early on in the edition. They were just too efficient. The combos of Mortals between Grenades and Hammer of Wrath, I think is just a really nice little tool that you can use with this squad, although you don't necessarily need to. And some of my experiences in-game have been on the receiving end of a squad of these guys. They actually can be surprisingly killy with the right kind of stratagem and leader support. Thanks to all their chainsword attacks and just being Space Marines, they'll generally just clear up any kind of enemy skirmisher that's trying to like set out and face them, even small squads of enemy units. If early game you're just like, oh, I just want to take the enemy off this 1 point, these guys move up 12, they charge, they do some mortals with Hammer of Wrath. If you just, that's the only unit you're really interacting with, maybe turn 1, turn 2, then all of a sudden, the Oath of Moment with the reroll hits and +1 to wound, you're going to take a serious bite out of even like light vehicles. So they can be quite a threat in that way, which is really nice. And don't forget, when these guys are in Deep Strike Reserve, thanks to their massive move of 12, you can actually rapid ingress them in a fairly safe location, perhaps behind a wall, or maybe just out of line of sight of most of the enemy army, and then just use their big move to get into position for a counter charge on the next turn, which can really take the wind out of some opponents' sails, and it kind of gives them a headache to play around. It certainly did to me. In terms of leaders that you have access to, one of the new ones that sort of came out this edition was the Captain with Jump Pack. 75 points, so very cheap for a captain, and he adds a fairly significant melee profile to the unit thanks to his Power Sword or his Power Fist, which is probably the one you want to go for, the Fist. He's got access to 2 great abilities. The Angel's Wrath, this basically adds 1 strength to all melee weapons of models equipped in that unit. Good for those chainswords, getting them up to strength 5, maybe you're starting to wound Marines on 3s, stuff like that, quite good. And it's good on his own Power Sword as well, if you just want to try and use that to get more attacks. You might be down to deal with enemy chaff. And then of course his Rites of Battle ability that all captains have, to reduce the command point cost stratagem by 1. Really, really good. You can get that rapid ingress for free. You can still use this when he's in reserves. That's quite good. And also just any other little stuff you might want to be using on them, like Armour of Contempt and the like. It just sort of lets you get a bit more efficiency out of this squad. At 75 points, he increases the cost quite a lot, but I think he honestly could be worth it. And it's a cool model. A really weird model here. The Blood Angels have a Chaplain with Jump Pack, and that lets all the Marines take them, even though it's like very clearly a Blood Angel unique model. Strange choice by GW, but I mean, I'm glad we've got the option, right? It's a pretty good add to this unit. +1 to wound all the time, really good. Like I said, a lot of those chainsword attacks are low strength, so getting those to hit even harder is like better. It's better than +1 strength for sure, just having +1 to wound. It's also great for that power fist, like wounding vehicles on 4s and things. Can really just up the damage. And this guy has fairly decent war gear himself. He can take a little melter pistol, which is kind of fun, or he can get another plasma pistol, kind of add to the squad's general kind of rate of plasma fire. Quite cool. And then he can even take a power fist himself. So yeah, pretty good all around. And his little exhortation of rage ability basically means on a 4-up you're going to do D3 mortal wounds to the enemy unit when you fight them. Again, it just adds to that like volume of mortal wounds that this squad can come out with. And I've seen if you put like a decent enhancement on this guy, maybe anything that gives him AP, this squad can actually be really, really dangerous. And finally, we've got old Caven Shrike. This guy's getting joined by a new Raven Guard character, which I think will be quite cool. Might actually like make Raven Guard compete with Ultramarines. I mean, it'd be a hard sell, but Shrike himself is actually very good for what you get. He's 100 points, so a little bit pricey, but he has a great suite of abilities. He gets Lone Operative and Stealth, so you can run this guy around on his own, which is quite cool. But notably, he also gives his unit Lone Operative. Now I believe this will be restricted by the data slate change that increases the range of that to 18, but still, if you can be careful with it, it's pretty good. He also has Echoes of the Raven Spire, basically at the end of your opponent's turn. As long as he's not in direct combat with an enemy unit, him and his unit can just be picked up and go back into reserves. This is really cool for playing with like a kind of hit and run role with these guys. Maybe you sort of sweep into an enemy flank, destroy a squad, then go back up into reserves and be ready to deep strike again. Maybe try and get a charge off. Quite good. And it can even let you do some like crazy rapid ingress plays. Thanks to that lone operative his squad gets, you could literally drop this guy down, wait for your opponent's movement to finish, drop this guy down exactly just over 18 away from your opponent, and all of a sudden they can't shoot you because of your lone operative ability, but then him and his squad move 12 and you've got 6-inch charge into your opponent's unit. Quite a strong ability to have. And when this guy does get into combat, he's actually vicious. He's got that blackout pistol, which is a couple of damage 2 shots. You know, it's got that precision on it, so you can kind of weaken an enemy character as you're about to go in. And then the Raven's Talons, 7 attacks. They're only strength 5 and damage 2, but they do have twin linked and precision built in. So he's just going to absolutely, like, between the pistol and this, he'll chop up even, like, slightly sturdy Marine characters. So yeah, really, really good. And it gives the squad and all the squads of these guys in your army extra objective control, which, you know, pretty good. When they're skirmishing up, they might like kind of get bullied off by enemy battle line units that they just can't quite kill enough of. If all of these guys are like very high OC, your opponent might have to commit something real to killing them, which can always give you a kind of a big trade advantage, which is what you're looking to do with these guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. We try and make content like this every week. Have a good one.